Let's dive in and get straight to the telephone now. And Rhode Island Democratic Congressman James Langevin, a member of the Gun Violence Prevention Task Force, joins me. Also, the congressman is someone who's been touched personally by gun violence in his own life. Sir, it's good to have you with me. And as we talk about this in an invigorated conversation now with the president really getting back on the road where he does his best work, campaign style, taking his message to Minnesota, I want to remind everybody exactly this is at the feet of Harry Reid in the Senate right now to move on this, and he appeared this weekend with ABC's George Stephanopoulos. Take a listen to his thoughts.
How about restrictions on high-capacity magazines for ammunition?
I think that's something we definitely have to take a look at.
Take a look or vote for it?
Well, let's see what it is.
So, sir, in your opinion, do you think that right now that the best approach is going to be agreement on both sides of the aisle on small steps, and that small step being potential for universal background checks as opposed to talking about the assault-style weapons ban and magazine clips?
Well, first of all, I want to give President Obama high marks for continuing to make gun control a top priority of his administration, especially so early on. Whenever, of course, you talk about gun-related issues, it gets my attention. I was a 16-year-old police cadet when I was in the police locker room one afternoon getting ready to go on my shift, and a police officer's gun accidentally went off, and the bullet went through my neck and severed my spinal cord, and I've been paralyzed ever since. So my accident happened in what should have been the safest of environments, and yet it just goes to show that you can't certainly prevent every gun-related issue, and of course, more guns around people isn't necessarily the answer, as the NRA would suggest. So I believe that we should focus on those things that are most important: universal background checks, an assault weapons ban, and also a elimination of these high-capacity gun magazines. And this is going to be our focus, and that's why I hope we can get something done on this.
Congressman, though, are you worried, though, that in the ranks democratically that there might be issues? Because the Wall Street Journal talks about the Senate side of this and the Senate bill, saying that the strategy outline also reflects a growing sense within Democratic ranks that some of the president's most ambitious goals, particularly the call for new bans on certain types of military-style guns, often described as assault weapons, may be unrealistic. And this is according to a Reid aide. And again, I get back to Harry Reid really being the key point person to be able to take through Feinstein's newly introduced bill, the Assault Weapons Ban Bill of 2013, and any other type of measures that the president would like to see put through the Senate first. Do you think, though, that Harry Reid, being a pro-gun Democrat, is the best person to helm this through the Senate side?
Well, if you were just talking about members of the House and the Senate in a vacuum, some of that may be true, but I believe the president's strategy is the right one by going right to the American people and making the case that we need universal background checks, eliminating the loopholes at gun shows that don't require background checks, going to the American people talking about an assault weapons ban, and also a ban on these high-capacity gun magazines. In an effort to continue to raise the volume of this, I'm sure the president's going to be talking about this issue in the State of the Union, and to help build momentum for that, I'm organizing an effort with my colleagues, Congresswoman Carolyn McCarthy and also Congressman Keith Ellison, asking members of Congress in the House anyway to give their one State of the Union guest ticket to a person who has been a victim of gun violence or family member who has lost someone to gun violence. By going to the American people, keeping this issue front and center, and demanding that members of Congress pass responsible gun control measures is how we're going to get this done. And I applaud President Obama for making this such a priority.
The State of the Union just over a week away right now, and sir, you bring up the fact that you do like the president's all-encompassing approach. However, the NRA has been very obstinate in going against the president and anybody else that wants to talk about gun control. Wayne LaPierre appearing with Chris Wallace over the weekend, talking directly about what he believes is the president's stance that he's not being public about. Take a listen.
They leafleted the country with flyers like this: Obama's not going to take your gun, Obama will protect gun rights, and now he's trying to take away all three. I mean, what they'll do is they'll turn this universal check on the law-abiding into a universal registry of law-abiding people, and law-abiding people don't want that.
Sir, it seems to be that Wayne LaPierre has come out against any type of reform in any general direction that's been discussed so far. When it comes to the Second Amendment, and as someone who has suffered at the hands of an accidental gunshot, what are your feelings about how the left can be better communicating the fact that while support of the Second Amendment is universal, there needs to be some control of the guns in this country when it comes to the current regulation?
Well, it's interesting because I also saw a clip of Mr. Wayne LaPierre over the weekend when he was speaking several years ago about his thoughts on universal background checks, and he universally endorsed universal background checks, including closing the gun show loophole, which I found astounding but refreshing. I wish he didn't have such short-term memory. Because if we could continue to play that clip and we could continue to get him perhaps to come back to his original position, then we could truly get something done on background checks. Look, one change in the gun law alone isn't going to get this done. It's going to have to be several steps, including getting weapons of war off of our streets. But I believe that we can certainly, obviously, respect the Second Amendment. We can protect law-abiding gun owners. But at the same time work together to try to keep guns out of the hands of criminals or people that have been judged to have a mental illness that would preclude them from owning a weapon. And we need to do this together, and I want to make sure that we're continuing to appeal to the American people to speak out, to remind the American people that you can have a major impact on whether or not gun laws get passed, if there are changes in our gun laws. It really is up to the American people to pressure members of Congress to act, and I call on them to be more vocal.
Congressman James Langevin of Rhode Island. Sir, thanks so much for joining me this morning. I appreciate it. Just a reminder, you can watch the President's remarks about gun violence and control on regulations coming up at 2:30.